It wasn't just cannabis and liquor which brought Oklahomans to the polls on Tuesday. Education was clearly a big issue in voters' minds, and several lawmakers who appeared to be on the wrong side of the education funding debate paid a price this election season.
Voters were clearly engaged in Tuesday's primary election. State Election Board Secretary Paul Zierick says after several years of decline, voter turnout hit new highs this year.
We really haven't seen this level of a turnout in a primary, if ever, in a long, long time. This beat the turnout in the 2016 presidential primary, which was a lot then, and it's even more voters than turned out in the general election in 2014.
The first indication that voter turnout would reach those heights came when candidate filing began this spring.
We saw nearly 800 file for office. We have seen a surge in voter registration. We saw a big increase in mail and early voting compared to the 2014 primary. So all of those gave us a great deal of hope that we would see some increased turnout on Election Day, and man, did we.
Nearly 100 of those who filed for office were teachers. Oklahoma City University political science professor Richard Johnson says the presence of so many educators on the ballot was significant.
If nothing else, it gives them a chance to kind of speak up, and it also forces people to realize that there are a substantial number of people who really care about education in a deep sort of way that maybe we didn't see 4 years ago.
Those attitudes were fueled in large part by anger at lawmakers who are perceived as not being supportive of issues such as education funding and pay raises for teachers.
Education cuts had been so bad, and I think people were just simply too tone deaf. Now, you know, there were members of the party who got behind it, and I think you saw that maybe more in the Oklahoma Senate than the House. But to be perceived as anti-education, education is still the #1 function of state government.
Thousands of teachers rallied at the Capitol for 9 days in April to demand increased funding for education. And many of those who showed up each day said it was that experience which prompted them to run for office. John Wood is a political science professor at the University of Central Oklahoma.
I think what happened is those teachers and those people who were Republican-minded folks who were pro-education went to the Republican primaries and said, we're tired of these incumbents voting against education. We're the state with the largest cuts in the country, about 28% since 2008, and I think Oklahomans across the board are tired of it.
Much of that anger was targeted at incumbents, 6 of whom were defeated on Tuesday, with several others facing runoffs in August. Oklahoma Policy Institute Executive Director David Blatt says that's a significant turnaround from previous elections.
Incumbency used to be pretty powerful, made you almost invincible within your own party. Now within the Republican Party, because this is not happening on the Democratic side, within the Republican Party there is a lot of dissatisfaction.
Wood notes that in most elections, incumbents do hold a clear edge over challengers.
They have the network advantage, the money advantage, the name advantage, all that stuff. The incumbency advantage is overwhelming in most races. But what's fascinating is these tend to be very conservative incumbents. They were very critical of the teacher pay raise, and looks like they paid for it.
Blatt says the anti-incumbency mood was clearly aimed at Republican office holders.
Very few sitting Democratic legislators drew opponents for the primaries. Quite a few Democrats were elected unopposed.
Of the 19 House members who voted against House Bill 1010, the tax increase designed to fund teacher pay raises, 9 were either voted out Tuesday or faced runoffs August 28th. The anti-incumbent mood even spread to the top of the ticket in the race for governor.
Most notably, perhaps, Todd Lamb, who was not an incumbent but was, essentially part of the administration over the last 8 years. The fact that he failed to make it into the top 2 and has been eliminated is also an indication that folks are unhappy.
Lamb finished 3rd in the GOP race for governor, behind Oklahoma City Mayor Mick Cornett and Tulsa businessman Kevin Stitt. Lamb had previously said he would not have supported House Bill 1010, which says Lamb was also hurt by being connected in voters' minds with the current governor, Mary Fallin.
You know, her poll numbers are dismal in the state. You know, it's in it's about in the 30 range, 30% range. And when your poll numbers are in the 30% range, whoever's associated with you is probably going to get affected. And I really think Lamb was affected by Governor Fallin.
It remains to be seen how much the anti-incumbent mood will translate to the November election, but Blatt says it does offer Democrats a window of opportunity.
I think that we would expect the Democrats to make solid gains in November, certainly in the House, maybe in the Senate, and then the big question will be what happens in the governor's race.
And while Johnson agrees that Republicans will maintain their hold on the reins of power in Oklahoma, they are seeing the consequences that come with being the party in control.
If you're going to be the majority party, then you have to take responsibility for governing. And that's going to be true in Oklahoma here. It's going to be true nationwide in 2020. And you have to have a record that you can run on and defend.